Mrs. Rajavi, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a British parliamentarian of 26 years old in the House of Lords. I'm delighted to be given this contribution to speak to this audience today. All I want to start with is saying to you that Britain ruled India for over 250 years, and we were fighting them to tell them to go back home. Ultimately, they decided to leave the country, and we said to them, don't go alone, we'll come and join you at some stage. And I'm delighted to say now that we not only visited the United Kingdom, settled in that particular country, but gave them an Indian Prime Minister. That is a tremendous joy on our part. 2 days ago, the regime in Iran has held another so-called presidential election to find a successor from Ibrahim Raisi, who recently died in a helicopter crash. Elections in Iran are meaningless unless you are the supreme leader Khamenei. They are deceptions to legitimize an unpopular, faltering dictatorship. They are an exercise by the supreme leader to consolidate power and appoint loyalists who will escalate repression and empower the IRGC to prevent further popular uprising. There is sufficient evidence of repression in Iran. History is marred by extensive movement in domestic repression and persecution. His proud moment, Sir Raisi's proud moment, according to the regime, was in his role in securing the regime's survival to the 1988 massacre of 30,000 political prisoners, mostly members of the organized democratic opposition, the PMI. The gruesome legacy was why the supreme leader handpicked him as president. And I'm not surprised with the inconclusive result of the presidential election. They're going to have another presidential election next week, and we'll soon find out that we have got nothing better than the butcher of Tehran being elected as president of that country. The candidates in yesterday's fraudulent election included another key perpetrators of the 1988 massacre, signaling the regime's unwavering commitment to its repressive cause. The regime is determined to double down on dissent, suppress women, carry out terrorist attacks on pro-democracy dissidents, and further destabilize the region. Tehran has no other option but repression, terrorism, and warmongering to maintain the grip on power. They have admitted to this fact with words and actions. One of the things that bothers me, being in British Parliament and having been a member of the Iranian resistance movement for the last 30 years, is the extent of Western complicity in the way the things are being run. The regime's increasing repression and terrorism are partly due to the impunity it enjoys, resulting from West's soft-line approach. For instance, when a perpetrator of the 1988 massacre was sentenced to life imprisonment in Sweden, the Swedish government cowardly pardoned him in exchanging for Swedish citizens held hostage for false charges. Similarly, when an Iranian diplomat was sentenced to 20 years in Belgium for planning to bomb the NCRI's annual summit in 2018, the Belgian government released him as a prison for exchange. There's a call to action here, and it's necessary to do so. Western leaders and governments continue to fail the regime's victims and the Iranian people by rewarding Iran's Tehran hostages, taking diplomacy instead of ensuring accountability. However, we gather in Paris, joined by tens of thousands of Iranians rallying in Berlin to demand change. The Iranian people have made it clear that they reject the absolute rule that the theocracy with their nationwide boycott of yesterday's election and 2 years of sustained protest. The NCRI spearheaded this campaign inside the countries through the resistance units and social network. The NCRI also put forward democratic roadmap in Madam Rajavi's 10 years point plan for future of Iran. These are the characteristics of a true opposition and alternatives to the regime, so-called the NCRI, PMI, and Madam Rajavi's in Tehran's prime target. As over 500 cross-party colleagues in the UK, you saw that particular vacuum, has signed, and I signed that particular book. It's time for the international community to recognize the democratic alternative and stand with the Iranian people. In conclusion, I have this to say. Iran's fate is determined by the people. They have shown us that they want regime change and democratic republic. We must stand with them and the NCRI by upholding international law. Yesterday, we had the Speaker of the House of Commons, former Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bowker, making a plea about the extent to which Western countries should now cooperate in helping Iran. He made a plea also for wanting to visit Iran as the first person when he's free. May I just say that I was the one who's been associated with this project for over 30 years, and I want to make sure that my name is on that particular list. And we therefore wait for Iran to achieve that particular freedom that will be generated by the women of Iran, by the contribution young people in Iran make, but most important than that, to stick to the 10-point principles which talks about justice, liberty, and peace. Free Iran.